Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to talk to another person who steps up and says, I want to help the town of Milford. I mean, my hat is off to all of the candidates, because too many people love to complain that, hey, Milford only got a B plus, or Milford only got an A, should have gotten an A plus. And say, what are you doing to help get us there? I'm too busy. You know, and candidly, and I'll admit, I have a character flaw that I believe you can complain about anything you're willing to fix. But if all you want to do is complain, then that's a bad use of good oxygen. But tonight, we're going to see somebody who believes he has a way of making Milford a little bit better, and more importantly to me, has pulled papers, is stepping up to run for a position to help us. So let's start with an introduction.
How you doing? My name's Jamie Luchini, lifelong Milford resident. I born here. I have two children in the school system here. Going back as far as I can remember, I can start how I got here. My father worked for the Milford Highway Department for 44 years. So some of my earliest memories were actually...
So you never got out?
No, I never did. The only time I got out was when I took the job in Northbridge, but growing up, many times my father would pick me up in the plow truck and I'd go off for several hours at a time.
So you just traded one color plow truck for the next?
Basically, yes. And, looking back, I think a lot of it my mother might have been using for babysitting for me to get me out of the house at the time up at the Heights. But, hey, what can I say? But I fell in love with it. And, time went on. I ended up becoming summer help at the Highway Department when I was in high school, under Ron Speroni, actually. Long-time highway surveyor.
Ronnie was there quite a long time.
Ronnie was a great man, and many times had coffee with him up at Honeydew on Thursday nights. He was a great guy, but ended up getting hired as summer help because my parents said it's time to get a job. They wanted me to go out there and jackhammer a little bit to try and teach me a lesson, so that way I'd stay in school. And I went to Mount St. Charles and go to college. Well, that plan, I think, really backfired because here I am running for highway surveyor in Milford, and I'm still involved in it because I'm the highway superintendent in Northbridge. So I don't think the whole summer help to teach me a lesson worked out too well, but here we are.
But now, you're from the Heights because
I'm a mayor,
you're
yes.
mayor of the Heights
this year, yes.
So, hats off that you're volunteering to help.
Well, the way I look at it, it's a continuation of what I've been trying to do in Milford for all these years. I have been a town meeting member for, that's going back to at least 2005, I believe, off the top of my head. And years ago, in about 2009, I ran and was successful to become the Vernon Grove Board of Trustees, and I've been the chairman of that for 8 years. And that really kind of got me involved in town government and how everything was working, and I'm so grateful for everything I've learned from that. I learned how all the departments incorporate finance committee, selectmen, at the time the capital improvement committee, and several others along the way to teach me how to make long-term goals and accomplish them. And I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. The bull in the china shop approach just doesn't work. You have to have a long-term plan and take baby steps to achieve what you try to achieve.
Well, I remember when you first got on Vernon Grove,
yes.
And you said, what should I look for to help the town?
Yep.
And I said, stop surprising us.
And I think through the last 11 years or so, I think we've done that. I think we've turned that around.
We had great people on the board.
Yes.
But every year it seemed like, well, surprise, we need X dollars.
One of the biggest things when I got on there was to get the budget under control, because it was, the way they were doing it was outdated. So one of the goals at the time was to get the budget under control. And I think within the first 2 years, I think we managed to curtail the overspending and bringing everything back at the end of the year pretty equal to where we were.
And I don't want anybody thinking that there was malfeasance.
No, none of that. It was an old way of doing the budget, and they didn't account for certain things. And when I came in there, I brought a little fresh idea to it, and they took to the way I wanted to try and do things, and it worked out.
And we haven't had many surprises, if any, for a decade.
So far, I got a couple months to go, but unfortunately, as part of this, I wasn't able to pull papers again to be a trustee again, because being on the ballot for highway surveyor, I think one ballot spot's enough for people.
Yeah, it does get confusing to people if they see your name for 3 different. It's like, well, if I vote for you, which one will you like better?
And I mean, it's too bad. I really have enjoyed my time at Vernon Grove, and some of the things I've accomplished, long-term goals there. I mean, we went from having 40-week positions and laying employees off. We had 2 full-timers and 1 19-hour-a-week part-timer. that we used to lay off at 40 weeks, December 1st, and put them back on April 1st, which sent everything at Town Hall crazy because, you know, people still do pass away in the winter, so they have to come back and deal with funerals.
Yeah, but I think what people didn't understand, Jamie, was unlike commercial, you know, municipal government pays dollar for dollar.
Yes.
So at my company, we pay a certain percentage into an unemployment pool. And then when we need it, you draw from it.
Yep.
The town of Milford pays nothing into a pool that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So my issue, because I was one of the loudest, was that we had somebody laid off for 12 weeks a year. They got 60% pay, or whatever it was.
Yep.
And the town paid dollar for dollar.
Yep. And it hurt the bond rating because you had people that were on unemployment.
And you sit there and say, wait a minute now, why is it that I'm paying 60% to have you home? I'd rather pay the little extra and get you to work in other departments.
And this was the conversation I had with the finance committee, so we ended up coming up with a plan with not increasing the budget, but putting them down to 35 hours a week and stretching it to 52 weeks. And in the course of that, we went out and bought we were lucky enough to be approved at town meeting about a new 1-ton with a plow, so that way now we didn't have to outsource and pay.
No, you started plowing your own
We plowed our own
roads in the-
cemeteries, and so we could take care of the Vernon Grove Cemetery as well as North Purchase Cemetery and not have to pay for it to get plowed anymore because the employees were there. And now that they're there, they have been incorporated into the highway department plans now, and they plow.
So we didn't
their
have
routes.
to hire outside See, it was killing me to hire outside contractors and pay our own employees to stay home.
Stay home, exactly. So
We
I think
spent more than we were going to when you made the proposal to just hire them.
Yep. And I think it all worked out in the long run. I really think it was a very great plan, and it seems to have ironed out, and now they have a full contract, and we have a year-round employment there, which, you know, taught me so much as far as municipal government goes, you know, and that was part of the stepping stones of coming back into the community and giving back. It was a nice segue to learn things, you know, which along the way while I was at the highway department, I had got employed there in 1999 full-time. Shelley Leclerc hired me full-time, and then I was there for about 15 years, give or take, and while I was there, I became the insurance rep, which was another avenue of things I was the insurance rep for our town, for our department, to go and negotiate. Remember those days when we were begging insurance companies to come out here to give us bids? I sat through all that, those long meetings. And I also became the union steward for about, I know it was 2 contracts. It was about 7 or 8 years. I took over steward, so I started negotiating contracts on behalf of the employees at the highway department. Once again, furthering everything that I had been coming along. So about 6, 7 years ago, I hit a glass ceiling at the highway department. I knew I was very happy with my job, but I knew I couldn't advance any further just because of the lay of the land. There was no room for advancement. So I looked in the mirror and said, it's time to see if I can make a career out of this with, you know, everything I've been building towards. I went out, I took about 4 or 5 interviews, got offered 4 or 5 jobs. Ended up as the highway superintendent in the town of Northbridge, which has been an amazing experience.
But now, highway superintendent, highway surveyor, same?
Same, difference being Northbridge is a DPW, so under me, there's a little bit of a different pecking order. There's a DPW director, then there's myself and the sewer superintendent. The sewer superintendent deals with the sewer. Now, under me, I wear a few different hats. I am in charge of 92 miles of road, about 25 miles of sidewalk. I have 14 cemeteries, 4 that are active from lot sales through burials.
14 cemeteries?
A lot of little historical ones. I'm in charge of 8 ball fields, all the town commons, all the town building mowing. So we mow about 122 acres a week. I'm also in charge of 7 town buildings, from janitorial through building repairs through construction. And I'm also in charge of traffic lights and street lights. And we own half the water company, so my day's a little busy. So
How do you own half a water company?
They divided a line literally in Northbridge, and half of it's the Northbridge water system and half of it's Whitensville water.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, how
We
does
sub
that...
it all out to Whitensville water, but there's literally half that is town-owned and half that is Whitensville water-owned. So The learning curve out there has been fantastic. I am so grateful because I learned things that I never would have been privy to out here because it was a very structured department, a very structured town. So I feel with all that knowledge I have experienced to bring that back as the highway surveyor, looking at it from so many different angles, would be a great benefit to this town.
Well, it's an interesting election because this is the first time that I remember that two highway superintendents are both going for the highway superintendent position.
Yes, and it's even stranger because I worked there for all those years and have history there, you know. So it's a different twist on this election, yes.
But now your family is Milford.
Family is Milford, yes, all of them. I'm third generation Milford actually, and my wife works in the school system. My children are in the school system as well. I'm a coach out here. I coach softball, basketball. I'm on the softball board.
Now the real question is, where's your mother live?
My mother's on Greenleaf Terrace.
So within 2 miles.
She's within 2
So
miles.
you're true Milfordian. We've
True
been joking
Milfordian.
about that, saying you got to be 3 generations
You have
and
to
live
be.
within 2 miles of your mother,
You absolutely have to.
and then you're a true Milfordian.
This is true.
We could go on and on, but okay, let's start.
Sure.
Now we're a quarter of the way in. Now we're going to start. Jamie, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Well, you know, I think what I can bring back to the town through everything I've gone out and learned outside of Milford, with the accreditations I've gotten, I became a Massachusetts Certified Public Procurement Official, which is a fancy way of saying all those funny municipal bidding laws and chapter 149, chapter 39, chapter 39A, all those procurement laws that are baffling to the common person. I got certified in because I deal with so many contracts, because I wear so many hats in Northbridge. So I really have zoned in on the contracting part and dealing with bids. The other thing, I've went out and I've got my construction supervisor's license, which means I'm an unrestricted construction supervisor. I went out and took classes for everything on there, and the knowledge that you can bring back that into a construction field with anything. I mean, even with repairs at the highway department, which I think that building needs some work. I think it's fallen into disrepair. You know, it's an older building, but it's not that old. I think we should really look at what we have and clean it up. It's not that far gone. And part of my tenure in Northbridge, I was lucky enough, we put up a brand new $2.5 million highway garage while I was there in the last 5 years. So I can see and know what is going on at the highway department in Milford. I think we don't have to go to that extreme and put up a new garage. I think we have a good enough location and a good enough shell. If we put the appropriate money into it, it would really advance where they are and for storage and stuff, because, you know, I see equipment out there all over the place outside, and I went through all that in Northbridge and stopped it. And we have everything parked inside now. So I think that has to be addressed. You know, some other issues that I think have to be addressed in this town. I would love to implement a vegetative maintenance program, which means when you do the Milford 500, you're not tripping over weeds. Downtown, no weeds around the trees.
Milford 500?
Milford 500, the Congress Street, Highland Street, West Street walking loop that in the summer, it's a beautiful loop to run. It really is. A lot of people are out there, and nothing aggravates me more than seeing weeds. You know, when I walk it myself, you walk out and you see weeds, and it just doesn't sit right with me, not with the department of the size we have and the resources we have. You know, a couple other things I would like to see is a complete restructuring of how road construction is bid and performed in this town. I've seen over the last few years that, you know, roads such as Water Street was opened up in July and was finished paved in October. Now, that's a direct result of how it's bid. With everything how I do my bidding in my roads, it's built in there that there's a time clause. So if they open it up on week 1, they better have it sealed by week 3, unless weather gets in the way or things, you know, things do pop up. But roads typically...
But 3 weeks seems
3 weeks.
quick.
That's how it's built in, because I deal with one contractor. How he divides up his subs and all that, I deal with one super. That way they're responsible for what's going on the roads. And if there's an issue, I deal with that super, and he deals with everything else. We're just here to make sure that the project gets done correctly. And, you know, this town has enough traffic problems to have roads open for 2, 3 months, 4 months at a time under construction. I mean, we're jammed up as it is with traffic. We don't have to add to it, you know. Another couple things that I'm privy to now is we're in a 18-town road salt consortium, which drastically brings down the cost of road salt. I mean, I think I'm only paying $46.45 a ton delivered. So I make a phone call, and now we have a snowstorm on Tuesday. I make a phone call on Wednesday. I can get 300-400 ton delivered by Thursday, dropped off right in my yard. It's an amazing thing because there's 18 towns in it, and they're buying in such bulk.
Is Milford part of that?
No, Milford does it on their own, and they even haul their own material.
Well, years ago, a pitch was made that we bought not a dump truck, but
Tractor
a
trailer.
tractor trailer
Yeah.
because we were going to save a lot of money hauling our own salt and we'd have it available. Is the price you're paying in Northbridge similar or?
Less, and it doesn't require manpower. And you know, on a good day when you're hauling salt out of Boston, you're lucky if you're getting 2 loads a day, 3 on a really good day with no traffic. When I show up in the morning, you know, after I make a salt purchase, there's 4 trailers lined up in the morning that are dumping right then and there. You can't beat it.
Well, then what's the advantage to doing it yourself?
I don't see an advantage to doing it yourself. I never did.
Okay.
You know, it's nice to have that option in the rare case, which I've only seen once, that they pull all the trucks out. We had that 110 inches of snow in 3 weeks, and Boston pulled them all in to haul salt, but we were in the same boat then. I called up a trucking company and just subbed it out with them, and they went in and dealt with it. So, I mean, I don't see an upside to hauling your own salt. It takes away from manpower. It's not as efficient, and it costs more because you're paying gas, you're paying, you know, an employee, you're paying tolls, you're paying wear and tear on a vehicle. That you don't do that when you
Well, I mean,
purchase
wear and tear, you're hauling salt.
still.
Could it be worse? I mean, what could you do to a metal truck that's worse than filling it with aggressive sodium chloride?
Dipping it in lava would probably be the only thing. A couple other things, you know, that I would like to change out this way is one of my big pet peeves is the LEAF program. I think it's a fantastic program. I really do. I think it's time that we have to look at the scheduling of it because it hasn't been finished on time in I couldn't tell you how many years. And I think there's a way to look at that and get more man hours on it, keep those machines out there longer at a zero cost to the town to try and better solve that on time. And I do know weather plays into it. This fall was a tough fall, but you know, I've seen LEAF programs pick up. They're still going on in halfway through January, and that's kind of crazy, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I don't envy anybody trying to schedule it because I guess we go on a 5-week rotation.
Yes.
I remember when my part of town was week 1.
Yeah. And there's no leaves.
No, I had 2. I took my 2 leaves, walked them down the end of the driveway, dropped them off.
Yep.
You know, because they just weren't down yet.
Yeah.
Or I think, was it last year that the snow came?
Snow came early this year too.
And all of a sudden, all my leaves were under snow, and I had to pray for, you know, a quick heat to get rid of the snow so they could come pick them up.
Yep.
But what can you do? I mean, you can't start picking them up in September
No,
because you're back to my 2 leaves.
not even at that point.
And if you wait till December, you're, you know, knee deep in snow.
Well, what I would like to implement in Milford, and I've been thinking about this for a very long time, and I did something similar, almost the reverse, at the Vernon Grove Cemetery, where right now the Milford Highway Department is a 40-hour operation. 40 hours
Most
a week,
places are.
15 employees. I think there's a way, through collective bargaining, you know, and iron out the details, that, and a lot of other towns do this. A lot of other towns, surrounding towns, have 4 10-hour work days for the DPW or Highway Department. The difference being, we're going to put a little Milford twist on it, is with the amount of employees we have there, we could keep the department open for 5 days a week at 10 hours a day for 50 hours of productivity, as opposed to 40 hours of productivity at a zero cost to the budget, a $0 add to the budget. And I think that would be fantastic, and it would increase the productivity of the Milford Highway Department infinitely out here. It would help in so many ways, including the LEAF program, because now those machines would be out there 10 more hours a week before you're even thinking about overtime.
How does that work, though? Because if I think about snow, you can't send a memo saying it can snow Monday through Thursday.
You absolutely can't.
So come Friday, when it's snowing like a banshee, don't I have to bring the other people in at time and a half?
It would not be a year-round situation. It would have to end right when it would probably be from an April or a May 1st through the second week or first week of December, when the LEAF program should be wrapping up.
Okay.
You could run into a couple situations where there is a snow event. It could happen. You know, you can
2
also
years
have
ago
a
we had-
hurricane in the summer,
We
too.
had snow in October.
Exactly. I mean, those things pop up. You can deal with them on an as-is basis. I don't think it's going to hurt anybody. And to be honest with you, the overall savings you'll be saving for the man hours, a little bit of an overtime situation like that would actually be an overall decrease, you know, if you look at the long term. Because one of the biggest things in a highway department is the mobilization. You know, I mean, this would help, like, even when you're going out sweeping streets. A sweeper would be out there for 50 hours a week now as opposed to 40. It's the mobilization when you come in and once you're out there, you're out there. There's production. It's when you have to come in, wash everything. This takes time. It takes away from the everyday operation of it. The sweeper would be out there 2 more hours a day. Think of how many roads you can sweep in a day, more of 2 hours.
Well, wasn't that the idea of the GPS system?
That was
You weren't paying somebody to drive from one end of Milford.
that came in after I had left. I do not use a GPS system in Northbridge. That is for the contractors that come in to plow snow. I don't feel it's completely necessary. I mean, the biggest proof I've always had with people in what I experience in Northbridge is if their route's not plowed, they're not doing their job. You know, the contractors, the proof's kind of in the pudding. You know they're there or they're not because you have checkers, and if the roads aren't being plowed, well, they're someplace else, so there's an issue. You know, I don't need a screen to tell me that they're not there if the roads aren't plowed. I can know that.
What was explained to us on a FinCom level was that right now when we put the call in,
Yep.
I got to pay you to drive from wherever you are to the highway barn, log in, and then, or maybe you don't pay to get in, but you have to pay them from when they log in to get back.
I mean, you could pay them once they're on their route. Maybe that's where the GPS comes in, so they're not coming down the highway garage to physically punch in.
Right.
That could be. I don't think you're saving all that much time. You know, I don't think it's an overall.
Well, the other thing too is it seems to, at least what was presented to us, eliminate, nobody's been here to plow my street. Well, yes, they have. We see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've learned with people in dealing with snow complaints that you could have a video of them plowing the road and they would say it's a different road, even
When
if
you're
you have
getting
the
those
GPS system.
2-3 inch an hour snowstorm,
It's tough to keep up. I don't
can
care
look
how many people
an
you have
hour
out there.
later and say, Jamie, we were just there an hour ago. Yeah, but it's that thick.
That's the tough part in the winter, and you know, no one sees the snow ferries out there. Everybody wakes up and everything's plowed and taken care of. It just miraculously happened, and it's a tough job. It really is. It really is, and you're never going to appease everybody when it comes to snow removal. But I think I think in Northbridge we do fairly well with it, and I'd like to bring that back to Milford.
Now, you talked about the highway barn. We've been told for years that there's not enough room, that the Parks Department puts stuff in the highway barn,
They
the
have
highway,
for many years, even when I was still
and
there.
there's no room. Have you looked at the options of, I mean, it's no surprise, you've got a garage right behind the highway barn.
Yep.
You know, Pintos.
And I
you sit there and say-
thought for a while that they were looking at that avenue, which I think the highway department is located in the perfect spot. It's centrally located. You don't want a highway department out
in
in the wings.
Hopkinton.
You don't want that. We went through this in Northbridge when we were going for the $2.5 million building, and we came to the conclusion right where we were in downtown was the place to be because your sidewalk tractors go out from there. You're centrally located to everything. You're near the schools. You're near the downtown. This is where the action is. And I think where they are with some additions and maybe with a purchase of Pintos, if that did come up again.
Lease, purchase, whatever.
Whatever it is, with some added structural changes, which comes into the construction supervisor's end of it, you could really expand that highway department and have everything you need right there.
Well, the thing that made sense was highway, parks, now you have a central
Central hub.
mechanic bay, or I don't know what you'd call it, maintenance?
Maintenance, but they have 2 mechanic bays with 1 lift, unless that has changed since I've been there, but I believe it's still only 1 lift. That way, all your mechanic bays are there, your equipment's there, your offices are there. People know where to go if they have an issue, which is huge to me, the availability and the accountability of all this. They know where to go. And I've always said that is the perfect location for it. It needs some work. We have to get rid of, dispose a lot of the excess equipment that's out there. We have to clean it up. We have to put some money back into the garages. But I think structurally they're fine, and there's enough room down there if we do a few additions and maybe purchase or lease some other space available down there.
One of the questions that's always going to come up, how do you feel about that trough of free salt and sand?
That's essential. You have to you have to have free sand and salt out for people. That's their tax dollars. They're entitled to come and get their sand and salt. It's different when you see contractors pulling up and loading up a 1-ton full. But as far as the
I
the
just
everyday
remember
person,
I used to pull in, and it would tick off people when you pull in and say, I need some salt. I paid for it. Give me some salt.
you got to keep the people out of where the operations
Well,
are
all
going.
these big
put it
trucks
on
are
the
zipping
side.
by,
Yeah,
and
there was
but it
always a
seemed like
challenge.
once they started throwing originally it was in front of Benny's.
Yes.
It was just a big pile.
A big pile.
Now there's a nice trough.
Yep, a little concrete
But
bin.
people seem to really like, I could go to a supermarket, pay $5 for a little bag of salt,
Yeah.
and it takes me 2.5 5-gallon buckets to salt my driveway. I don't know how many of these little bags. I'd be there all day
All day.
at $5 a piece or whatever they
It's
charge.
a service that this town's always given, and it should continue. We do the same thing in Northbridge. We have a pile out there in a concrete bin for people to come and.
Do you suck leaves in Northbridge?
We do not suck leaves, but we do have a leaf program. We have a bagged leaf program in Northbridge, which means residents purchase recyclable brown bags, and they put them out in front of their house, and we go by and pick them up. Now, when I first started out there, they had a few 1-tons that would wait for a call at the highway department, and then you'd send a truck over there to go pick up their leaves. So I divided the town up into 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, which was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And if you were in section 1, put your bag leaves out there on Monday, and we'll be by and pick up your leaves. And then we went I've gone as far as we did away with the 1-tons because these guys were lifting, wet, heavy bags of leaves into an F550 that's a little bit high. Went out and purchased a hook and load trash packer. So that way, instead of just putting 30 or 40 bags into a 1-ton, now they can go out and get about 250, sometimes a little bit more bags of leaf in a trash packer and go dump it once as opposed to dumping it 6, 7 times through the course of the day.
I've got a problem.
Shoot.
I have too many of these trees with leaves. So I set up, 100 feet of leaves. I have to buy special bags.
Yes, that's how they run their program out there.
So it's a tax.
Yes.
I was going to say,
Yep.
to me, when I go down to Stop and Shop and I see the designer trash bags, my daughter used to live in Worcester where you get a little cute bag, $3 a piece.
You have to buy about 6 of them for a regular bag, yeah.
And I think about how many bags I would have to do.
This was the system that was in place there, so, they're happy with that system. It does help in one respect if you get inclement weather. You just push the bags back. That is nice. They're not in your gutters anymore, or they're not on the sidewalks. That is a nice aspect of it for the safety part of it. But all I could do was take what they had and put my implementation on to streamline it.
I guess being mean, would you try and change our leaf program?
I have no intentions to change
Okay.
the LEAF program. No,
Okay.
None at all. All I want to do is make it more viable and try to finish on time. I want those machines out there longer, for less cost. I don't want to increase the budget.
Well, I don't think anybody would complain as long as I'm not expected to put out 520 bags.
No, I have no need to change the LEAF program. I think it works the way it does. I think, there are some issues, obviously, when the weather turns cold, people putting it on sidewalks, things like that of that nature, but those are going to happen. Overall, I think the program works. I just think it could be better.
Okay. When you look at the highway department, you've given some ideas, but if you had the magic wand, what would be your top 3 priorities?
My top 3 priorities would be, I would definitely like to increase the man hours of the employees from the department from 40 to 50. I think that's catamount in what you can accomplish. I would love to see us get into a salt consortium to lower the costs of salt. And I would also ultimately like in the winter to bring down the cost of the per inch snow.
No, I think, what are we at now, 10,000?
If you take the average over the last 5 years, you're at about 14,800 per inch.
Really?
Yes, and similarly, I went and took the last 5 years in Northbridge to see what I was averaging, and I'm at about 7,500, 7,000 to 7,500.
'Cause I thought we went from 13 down to 10.
No, if you take the totals of what I did is take the total of what the snow and ice budgets were for expended for the last 5 years, the amount of snow we got in those years, let it be 45 inches, let it be whatever, divided it up and took the average, and it was at about 14,800 for the last 5 years. Now, I did not go prior to that.
No, but I just remembered that, the highway surveyor did something I'll never forgive. He put that number in my head, so I get up in the morning and say it's gonna have 5 inches of snow. I'm thinking, oh, 50 grand. Just now all of a sudden, it's so much an inch.
Yes.
And I think of our budget every
And
time
how
they
quick
say
it goes, and it's like the water bill or the electric bill running in the summer, yes. And and a lot of that does reflect on taking that, what I am doing with that number is taking everything into account, meaning what the total snow and ice budget was. Now, that's repair and maintenance, that's salt, that's contracting, that's overtime, that's all that stuff wrapped and rolled into it. So I think we can bring that number down, and one of those ways to bring that number down is by joining a salt consortium, because now you're taking that part of it out of it. You're lowering that, And if you throw more contractors out on routes, that helps. Meaning, like when I first started in Northbridge, you only had 12 to 14 contractors doing 92 miles of side. Well, we had
I think
our
we
guys.
have, what, 70?
Excuse me?
I think we have 60 or 70.
I
And
think Milford's at 45
Oh,
or 50,
okay.
in that ballpark. But the way I look at it is, if you have 10 guys doing a job and it takes them 20 hours, if you put 20 guys on the job, it's going to take them 10 hours. The total's the same, but the efficiency goes up, which is what everybody wants. You want efficiency. Now, if it snows for 20 hours, it snows for 20 hours. There's nothing you can do about it. But the cleaning up after, if you can throw more people at that and bring down the amount of time that they're there, it brings down dollars, and it brings down the amount of time people are, I don't want to say trapped in their houses, but inconvenienced. So that's a big issue to me. I'd like to bring down that cost per inch for the town.
now, over the years, and I'm not a salt expert.
Yep.
To me, it's sodium chloride and that, boom,
Oh,
done.
it's changed a lot.
But I've seen us go from liquid salt to all sorts of different options.
Now, I know when I was still out here, it's not changing to liquid salt. It's an additive you put into the salt with spray tanks, where at first it was calcium chloride, straight
Right.
calcium, but that destroyed everything. So every town's done away with that. Then it's gone to different byproducts, a molasses byproduct,
Yes.
this byproduct. They have all different additives, but that's in addition to, that is not in place of. So as the salt's coming out of the truck, these are sprayed onto it to enhance the salt. Some say it works, some say it don't. Some towns have even gone to treated salt, which to me, I don't see the benefit of that.
But what does it do? Is it freezing point depression?
Basically, if salt's only active, if you get to about 15, 20 degrees, salt's not supposed to be activated, because then there's the refreeze factor, so it melts and refreezes. You put these additives in there and it lets it come down to a lower temperature. In my experience, it's not worth all the hassle to go out and get treated salt, because the difference is so minimal. It's like pre-treating with salt brine. I don't believe in that. I don't see the benefit to it, because once it starts snowing, it starts snowing. There's no way to prevent it. It's New England. There's no way to stop snow, Granted, this winter we're doing fantastic with it, but there's no way to prevent it.
Now, ice storms seem to be worse than snowstorms.
I'd rather see 6 inches of snow than a half inch of ice. Ice can paralyze a town because there's nothing you can really do to it. You can't salt it because you're at that temperature where it's not going to be
It's
effective.
going to freeze again.
Still refreeze. So you have to fall back to some of the old ways of doing things, which is throw a little mix out there so you have traction. The problem with ice is when it forms on trees, they bend over and they can take out power lines, and it can take trees down and block roads. It can become a real nightmare like it was for Berlin back, it was about 10 years ago. They had that big ice storm where everything was
everything's
crippled up there
gone.
for a week or two. I'd much rather see snow. Snow you can plow.
Okay. Funding. I mean, for years, we've been throwing in an extra $500,000 every year. Because Chapter 90, the funds that the state gives us, Chapter 90.
I think Milford, correct me if I'm wrong, I know we get about $472,000 a year in Northbridge, so Milford must be getting somewhere in the ballpark of 700 and change.
But then we kick an extra $500,000.
Which is a fabulous starting point. I know in Northbridge I have the Chapter 90 money, and they give me, the first few years they gave me an extra $125,000, which was great. So in that time with just using the Chapter 90 money, I have been able to accomplish paving over 19 miles of main road on just the Chapter 90 money. So it's almost a fifth of the town we've gone in and paved. And it's been a very, very, very productive roads program that I would really love to bring out here.
How long does a road last?
Well, I mean, that's the mystery question. There's no guarantees. People say if you totally reclaim a road, it'll last 20 years. I've seen roads totally reclaimed when they start cracking 5 years down the line. It's an issue. It happens. I've had phenomenal success with coplaning and paving, meaning you go in and take off the first...
Gesundheit, what does that mean?
It basically means you go in and take off anywhere from 2 to 2.5 inches. I prefer the 2.5 inches of the existing asphalt.
How thick is a road in Milford?
They're all different, but on average, you'd like to see 2 inches of top and about 2 inches of base. You're talking 4 to 5 inches is an average road.
Total hard top.
Thickness, yeah.
Okay.
Between base and top.
So you're taking off about half.
About half, a little less. You go down in with a milling machine, take down the 2.5 inches, and come in and put fresh new road top on it. And I have had phenomenal success out in Northbridge with that procedure. It's a lot cheaper than going in and reclaiming roads. I don't believe...
What is reclaiming?
Reclaiming is when you go in and you take everything to dirt and you reshape the road and start from scratch and put a new pitch into it. I think in some roads you have to. I mean, some roads, when there's exposed aggregate, you have no choice. If people go down the road, you see dirt peeling through the road, there's not much left there. You got to go down. But in a lot of roads, you can go down that 2.5 inches and get the consistency you need on the top and get, a good 10, 12 years out of that at least, with going back in later and crack sealing it and upkeeping with it. I don't like doing a lot of these other projects, which is a lot of hot-in-place pavement, slurry sealing, a lot of things that have been done out in Milford. I am not a fan of those procedures.
Hot place sealing.
Hot-in-place paving is they bring in a machine. It's what they did on Spruce Street in front of the library. They came in with these big plates and they heat up the asphalt that's there. They put an additive in it and lay it back down. I have not found success with that. A couple of roads that were done prior to my getting in Northbridge, the top layer peeled away 3-4 years later. And now you're back to where you started. I don't have faith in those systems. I think the best bang for your buck is going in and cold planing or reclaiming. I'm a little old-fashioned when it comes to that. And then once you have that in, then you follow up with crack sealing in that sort of situation to keep the roads going, because it's not pave it and it's all over. You have to stay on them and keep on the upkeep.
And that's that snake-looking material.
Yes.
What is that?
That's just rubberized crack seal.
Okay.
That's all it is. It's heated rubber that's put down to hold the cracks together so that way water can't
get in there
and create potholes. And my MO is if I pave a road, I try and go back about 3 years later and I do the first crack seal on that road because it's minimal. And then if you can control that, because that's where your settling will happen and you'll see your cracks. If you can control those initially, I've had very good luck with it that they haven't continued cracking. If you stay up on it in that first 3 years, everything settles. Roads tend to sit where they are.
Now, you have how many miles in Northbridge?
About 92, give or take.
So I'm trying to think of what we have in Milford.
About 122,
I was going to
give
say,
or take.
it's not that
It's not that far off.
I didn't think Northbridge was as wide and large as Milford.
It's actually bigger land-wise than it is in Milford. Yes, I believe it's about 18 square miles, and Milford's 16 or
Well, I'm just thinking, I
120,
was thinking we got 125 miles or so, roughly,
give or take.
and you're already hitting 90 as you're talking.
Yes, a lot of long roads.
So now, one of the things that always comes up is, why aren't you doing my road?
Well,
How do you plan?
the way I plan and the way the systems I've put in is I go out and take a look at what roads are the worst, where I have a tracking system for work orders, where you get the most calls for potholes. That's usually a tip-off that road's in the worst
Yes,
shape.
I remember Whitewood ate 2 of my rims.
Yes. So that's a tip-off right away. So with that, through the course of the winter, I go out and I observe the roads and see what they look like. Try to extend out which roads over the next 3, 4 to 5 years that you can see are heading in that direction. Get my total, what I have for my budget with, Chapter 90 and or whatever or in Northbridge's case is an extra $100,000 in some years. So now I have my total, and I work backwards from there. And I look at the roads, okay, this one has to be totally reclaimed, so that's gonna cost X amount of dollars per foot, so I have my own little estimation system, my matrix I built in. So I could say, okay, that road to Cold Plain's gonna cost me $200,000 to totally reclaim, it's gonna be $350,000, and work backwards from there. So that way I know my heaviest roads that I need to be done, what my cost is, so when I go into the bidding season, now I know what roads I can accomplish, and I can extend out over X amount of years with that.
But now, Mrs. McGillicuddy calls.
Yep.
And says, why aren't you doing my street? You got 100 miles, give or take.
Give or take.
How many miles can you do a year? 10?
That would be I think 10 is way too aggressive to do that. I'd say in a good year, you're talking 4 miles, and that's even pushing it.
Okay, so basically every quarter century, you've cycled through the town.
You would hope to.
I mean, it's
You
not
would hope
that
to.
easy because some roads are
And
much
some
heavier.
and some roads fail at different times than others do. And you have to go out and really be on the road and be available to see what the people's needs are on these roads. And the only way to be is to be out there and see it. That's the whole trick, to come up with a plan. And that to me is catamount to being a highway surveyor, is being out there and being hands-on and dealing with people and seeing what their needs are on roads. Because everybody has a little pothole in front of their mailbox. We all know that. Doesn't mean we have to pave the whole road. It means maybe we can just cut a little section and take care of that. I mean, there is depressions in roads that you can handle without going in and redoing the whole road,
Now, Northbridge seems like a smaller town,
Population-wise, they're at about 17,000.
and we're at 28
30, give or
registered,
take.
30 total.
Give or take, yep.
It seems like you got a full-time job in Northbridge.
I do.
How does that translate to a much bigger town like Milford? Like, how many hours, or how do you take care of all of Milford? It's still one job.
Yep. Well, as you can see with the stuff I have over my head in Northbridge, I'd actually be cutting back on the amount of things I'm in charge of, so I could focus entirely on roads and sidewalks as opposed to worrying about
Ballparks.
there's that field's too high, or the lights on in the basement at this building, or we have an issue with the plumbing at this building, or this traffic, the street lights out. I could completely dedicate my 40, 50, 60 hours a week I would be spending in Milford on the roads and sidewalks, and really bring back the availability and accountability that I know this town deserves, and I can give that to the people.
Do you think you can get it done in those hours?
I know I can get it done. It's a 24-hour-a-day job.
No.
It's there's emergencies happen all the time. You're never off the clock when you're in a highway superintendent or a highway surveyor. You're never off the clock.
We've never been good at issuing the memo. It can only snow between 9 and 5,
No,
Monday
it doesn't
through
work out
Friday.
that well at all. It seems to always happen in the wrong times.
Now, people-wise, how many people do you have doing highway work in Northbridge?
In Northbridge, I have 7 full-timers, and that's highway, that's mowing, that's cemeteries, that's everything. And
But I mean, we have more than that in Milford.
you have about 15, I believe you're up to, yes, which is why I think we can increase the amount of hours in the work week for here, because we have a good enough amount of employees to handle that.
Yeah, I'm just, again, I don't know any of the details. but 7 versus 15 seems like a large difference.
It's a challenge in Northbridge to juggle. I've become a really good juggler in the last 5 years or so. We do a lot of outsourcing for things because it's necessity. You have to. When you're mowing 122 acres a week and taking care of buildings, it doesn't leave much room for a lot of other stuff. So that's why.
I was thinking of the 14 cemeteries.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, a lot of them are small. Don't get me wrong. It's not all like the size of Vernon
like
Grove.
well, it's like Purchase Street.
Several on that size, and some are even smaller than that. A lot of historical cemeteries, a lot of those.
But you still got to maintain
Still
them.
got to maintain them and trim them. Yes.
Because I was going to say, I mean, families still want to go and see their great-great-grandfathers or great-grandfathers, grandmoms.
And all the town commons, those are all war memorials. We mow all the war memorials on top of it. It's, like I said, I've become a very good juggler in the last 5 years.
So now, as we start looking at the future, I mean, you talk about a DPW. Do you ever see that coming to Milford?
Well, I know that word's been thrown around for a long time in Milford. I think there's a chance that if handled the right way, I don't know if it could be a true DPW at this time, but I think you could bring a few different departments under one house and minimize a lot of the interactions with the different, instead of bringing 3 budgets up to the finance committee, you'd be bringing 1. And you still have your park commissioners and cemetery commissioners and everybody else. It's just that the direct day-to-day budgeting would go through one person.
And I remember when we first talked about it, the Parks Department was more sensitive than most, saying, if you put us under somebody, we'll get shortchanged.
And it takes people don't ever want to lose what they have in their department. It's, much like me in Vernon Grove, I wouldn't want ever someone to come in and take control of that because this is what we've controlled and taken care of for so long and take pride in it, much like the park commissioners and everybody else that's involved in that. And I just think there's a way to streamline it in the long term, and this would never happen overnight. Yeah. I think there's a way if everyone could get into a room and sit down and really talk about it and really use that interdepartmental glue that I know Milford has. I think if we bring the right people into that room and talk about it, we could definitely achieve that in the long term.
Well, that was always one of the benefits we saw by if everybody lived on Pond Street. If everybody was there.
In a perfect world.
You'd sit there and say, okay, if highway and parks and everybody, they all park their trucks and live on Pond Street.
Yep.
They have to talk to each other because they're going to bump into
no choice.
I would never advocate to shortchange one department over another. Because the minute we do that, I mean, if you remember Purchase Street Cemetery, when that grass started growing and nobody was cutting it fast enough.
And this goes back to what my belief is in interdepartmental communication. I knew that was going on. So we had cemetery guys. It wasn't a big deal for us to go out and buy a trailer and have cemetery guys take care of the cemetery, to take it away from the park department. They had enough going on. They got all their fields that are top notch, and then they had the bike trail. So, I mean, they had a lot of stuff they had to deal with on top of this cemetery. So why wouldn't the cemetery personnel take care of the cemetery? It made sense. And that's how I look at all municipal work. That's how, in Northbridge, I deal with so many different things that we're all on the same team. We have to learn to work and speak together and talk to each other and get these things done.
Well, I remember that became pretty obvious when 2 departments were looking to buy the same octopus.
The same flail mower. I happen to be...
Flail mower, to me, looks like a damn octopus with all its arms.
I happened to be at that FinCom meeting because I was on it for Vernon Grove earlier, and yeah, they were both going for the same piece of equipment, and that's the stuff I think I know I can streamline and take out of the equation.
The thing that hit us was Parks made a compelling argument, and they said they need it
for the bike trail.
For the bike trail, but it was 12 or 14 weeks of the year. Highway said, we don't need it then, we need it here.
So then why buy the 2?
That was...
Let's buy the 1.
And you share.
There you go.
Because that's what stumped us, is we're saying, wait a minute, you're both saying, you need it in the spring, you need it in the fall. Do you do anything in the fall? No. Do you need it in the spring? No.
This is the interdepartmental planning that I want to bring back to this town. In a major way. I think we have a lot of room for improvement there. Milford's in a great shape. The ball fields are fantastic. you know, things are getting done in Milford. I just think they can be done better, more efficiently.
One of the things that seems to be looming is all the new permits.
Stormwater,
Yes.
yes.
You know, but you start looking at everything from oil and grease requirements to 608, you know.
The stormwater, it's the 500-pound gorilla in the room. And my feeling on stormwater right now is we don't even know what the stormwater permit is yet. This has been going on for at least a dozen years. In Northbridge, I'm a member of the Central Mass Stormwater Coalition. There's a group of 31 towns that are together and dealing with this as one group. So that way we have resources, we can share resources, pool resources. It costs $4,000 a year to be in this, and it's an unbelievable
We're spending
tool.
$500,000 a year.
You're actually spending more than that. The last 2 town meetings, you approved $400,000 at each of them for stormwater, and I don't know where they're going. As far as I know, as of right now, unless the law changed since I came in here, the only thing that was due last September was the notice of intent. That's it. So even if you outsource the notice of intent, it's probably only $35,000. So I don't know where the $800,000 that has been allocated for stormwater is going if we don't even know what we have to do yet. No towns are in a position that knows what has to be done yet because nothing's finalized. The federal government's still in court with the town of Franklin as well as the Central Mass Stormwater Coalition to try and figure out exactly what is going on. So we're just sitting back and pooling our resources with this coalition, and at least, you know, you got 31 different towns. We're all helping each other.
Well, I remember when the fellow came in and said he could deal with, you know, the whole impermeable layer.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it kind of bothered me when he said you can do it without taxing people. And I said, oh, that's an interesting concept.
Isn't it?
He said, well, we could make it a fee.
Oh, a fee, back to a tax.
Well, that's what I said. I said, you know, with all due respect, I feel your hand going in my pocket, and you're taking money out of my back pocket.
I was going to say, just not your left one, it was your right pocket.
Yeah, it's like
instead.
tomato, tomato.
Yep.
Sorry, to me, when you take money out of my pocket, it's a tax.
One way or the other, no matter which way you want to describe
But
it.
it seems like it's only getting worse every year.
Hey, a lot of the stipulations in the state are getting hotter and hotter. I mean, now you're at the point where with your NIPTs, which means nothing to anybody, but you have to prove to, because of stormwater and this, that you're using less and less sand and more salt every year because the sand was causing nitrogen into ponds
Right.
and all this. Well, now the study comes out not 2 months ago that so much salt's getting used in New England now that it's hurting on that side of it. So now, once again, we're flip-flopping where we were 4 or 5 years ago saying don't use the sand, use the salt. Now the salt's hurting things. So that's my case in stormwater is I don't understand where this money that's getting allocated in Milford's going to because no one has any answers yet.
But where it's being presented to us that we have no choice, we must.
I have not seen the must anywhere yet. And the proof of that is if you go back and find out where is that money going, none of it's been spent yet. Not a dollar of it. So basically there's $800,000 sitting in there that's not going anywhere that I think could be reallocated for the needs of right now for, you know, if you need an elevator in a school or if you need, whatever the case may be, that's not for me to decide, but I can't see that sort of an amount of money sitting somewhere where it could be used for something
Well, I'm
else.
certainly going to ask that question because we went up from 400 to, you know, it goes up every year. And I don't see the cash balance saying we didn't spend it. We're spending it on something.
I think they're still sitting, I still think they're sitting in there in an account. Now, I know at that same FinCom meeting, issues came up or questions came up that, well, we're using it, it's all inclusive, we're using it for catch basin cleaning and sweeping and all that. Well, there's a line item in the highway department budget for catch basin cleaning and street sweeping, so why is it getting doubled up?
What was explained to us was that because of the new permit or whatever regulations, we have to do more catch basin cleaning, that we used to have to clean them once a year. Now we have to clean them twice a year.
That would be news to me. There's
But you're
nothing
saying
even
other
settled
towns
yet.
don't,
All the notice of intent, the only thing that was due for stormwater right now was a notice of intent, which means you have to come up with a 5-year plan to reduce X amount of phosphorus
Right.
and all this stuff. You don't have to implement it yet. It's just the plan was due. We have to come up with the plan. That's what's on the table right now. The implementation was supposed to be up next year, and they've already pushed that back further as well. And we've learned all this through the Stormwater Coalition I'm a member of.
You've got me perplexed. I'm certainly going to
I'm sorry
ask.
about that.
No, you should. It's our money. I mean, nobody that is on the FinCom has ever complained about spending money we had to spend.
No, and there will be a time when there will be an implementation of some form of a law with stormwater. The problem is there is no law yet. The only thing that was due was the notice of intent.
Interesting.
I mean, it goes back in a similar situation when this first came up 12 years ago. I mean, this has been kicked around for so many years. I remember one of the first thing you were going to have to put in a stormwater treatment plant in every town, and it was going to be all that. Well, that came and went. Then there was, you have to use a regenerative sweeper, regenerative air street sweeper. So Milford went out and bought one right away, and that bylaw came and left. You don't have to do that anymore. So, I mean, I think the department is jumping on to things that you don't have to jump at quite yet. It is going to happen. I can guarantee that. But I don't think we have to be allocating money to something that doesn't exist
No,
yet.
but if we're buying equipment 5 years early, I mean, let's face it, highway department equipment doesn't have the easiest life.
No, it's used in the worst situations.
It's
Everything
used
goes out
in the winter, over the bumps, through the
worst
woods.
weather humanly possible. That's when we get called into
So,
work.
if something's supposed to last 10 years or 15,
They usually last about 7 in a
7.
highway department
So if
world.
I've used up 5 of them, I only get 2 years.
Yep.
Interesting. You've given me good insight. When we have our candidates night, I will be asking those same questions,
Fantastic. I look forward
but
to
I'll be
it.
a little more educated. Jamie, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
You should vote for me because I promise to the taxpayers out there, I will bring back the accountability and availability that the Milford Highway Department should be giving to its people. The phone call, the on-site visits, I will be there for the taxpayer, for the voters of this town, and I can pledge that, and this is what this town deserves.
As always, I'll never ask you to vote for any specific candidate. Not my place, not my role. I will beg you, as I do in every election show, get to know the candidates. I mean, first of all, thank you to all the people who, as I said, aren't just standing up saying it could be done better, but are volunteering time away from their family and everything else, because let's not kid each other. 40 hours a week is a myth. Any of these senior positions, whether you're in municipal government or commercial operations, I don't know anybody who works 40 hours a week.
Not even close.
So when you're dedicating more time, it's got to come from somewhere, and people are taking it away from their families. They're not home playing with their grandkids or their children. They're out helping Milford. So first of all, thank you. Second of all, please, I'll implore you, I'll beg you, get out and vote. There's plenty of opportunities. 6 people who watch my show, people who watch the town crier, people who go to the senior center. There's plenty of time to get to know the candidates and who they are, what their core beliefs are. Pick one that you believe in. I may agree, I may not agree. Not relevant. As long as you pick one, I will say thank you for voting. So, look forward to candidate night. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless, and may tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thank you. Good night.
Not too long since I've been home.